Teresa Skubic, and this is Forum Daily for Monday, July 20th. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada is experiencing one of the most intense wildfire seasons in its history, with thousands of firefighters working to protect communities across the country. Carney says more than 5,000 firefighters, along with nearly 300 water bombers and other aircraft, are battling close to 1,000 active wildfires from coast to coast. The Prime Minister visited federal wildfire response staff in Ottawa on Sunday, thanking crews supporting operations in northwestern Ontario and across the country. Carney says extreme heat and prolonged dry conditions have fueled one of the worst wildfire seasons on record, as another First Nation in Ontario reports damage from the advanced flames. And U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to raise tariffs on Canada, blaming the country for wildfire smoke drifting across the border. Smoke from nearly 200 wildfires burning in Ontario has spread into parts of the United States, impacting air quality across several regions. In a social media post, Trump accused Canada of failing to properly manage its forests. The comments come after other Republican lawmakers criticized Canada's wildfire response, calling for stronger action to prevent cross-border smoke impacts. President Trump says he spoke with Prime Minister Mark Carney about the wildfire situation.
With Carney from Canada today?
I did, yeah, I did.
How did that go?
Well, it went good, but I told him, you got to stop these fires from coming in and, poisoning our air. Our air has been poisoned. I have a good relationship with Mark Carney, but, we got to stop the fires up there. If we can help them, we'll help them. But maybe they should pay us some damages or something, or we should do some tariffs. But it was terrible. You had businesses closing. In particular, Michigan. If you look at Detroit, Michigan area, they had to close everything. They had to close car plants and a lot of other things. So I've never remembered this happening. Over the last 4 or 5 years, you saw it starting to take place. I've never remembered it happening.
A Northern Ontario First Nation is the latest community forced to evacuate as leaders raise concerns about the challenges remote communities face during climate emergencies. About 600 members of a First Nation located roughly 360 kilometers north of Thunder Bay are being flown out as wildfires threaten the community. The Ojibwe community declared a state of emergency Wednesday with support from the Royal Canadian Air Force and Canadian Rangers helping with the evacuation. Community leaders say the crisis highlights the need for better emergency preparedness and support for First Nations facing increasingly severe wildfire seasons.
I really believe we're all worried about our community because it's our home base. It's we don't want our house to burn because that would be a real, that would have put a lot of distress on the community members because they have, families, right? And I know I wouldn't want to, I'll speak from me, I wouldn't want my house to burn. I would be really stressed because you lose everything, right? Especially your personal stuff that, you cherish. Could be pictures, could be what.
And Ontario Premier Doug Ford says the province will continue supporting displaced residents with accommodations, food, and other necessities, but is asking people not to return until officials confirm it is safe. Ford says water bombers battling the fires will not drop water in areas where pilots see people on the ground, making unauthorized returns a potential safety risk for both residents and firefighters.
We will find you a place, a hotel room, we'll get you food, we'll make sure you're well taken care of. But when the water bombers go over and they see any citizens that aren't theirs, they won't drop the water. So it's critical that you move out of these areas. As of this morning, 10 communities have been evacuated to municipalities across the province, and 3 are still preparing or under warning or potential evacuation. To support evacuation efforts, we have opened provincially led reception centers, for example, right here in Thunder Bay. Last year, we spent $271 million. There is no limit to spending. And if it's $500 million this year, so be it. I've made clear direction to our ministers. I don't care what this costs. Number one, our priority is to protect the people. So it's absolutely disgusting, in my opinion, that they want to politicize and play games when people's lives are on the line. So I just want to be clear again, there is no limit to making sure that we support and save people.
I'm now joined by Dr. Blair Feltmate, the head of the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo, to discuss the ongoing wildfire situation across Canada and what it reveals about the country's preparedness for increasingly severe climate-related disasters. Blair, thank you so much for the time.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Now, do you believe the increasing wildfires we are seeing across Canada in recent years are due to climate change?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. And lines of evidence in favor of that position are, for example, Canada is about 1.7 degrees Celsius warmer today than it was 70 years ago. And that's driven by loading of CO2 into the atmosphere. Uh, Canada is heating at 2 times the global average in southern regions of Canada and at 3 times the global average in the north. Uh, Wildfire season today starts about 1 week earlier and ends 1 week later than occurred 70 years ago. And the statistics just keep piling up. We've got lower snow load during the winter. Overall, drier conditions in forests during the summers. All of these factors contribute to the wildfire that we're observing now, taking place from literally coast to coast.
Now, we heard Mark Carney say that this is one of the most challenging wildfire seasons Canada has faced. Will wildfires become more challenging in the future?
Yes, for sure. And and that's driven by the fact that climate change is irreversible. Climate change is here to stay, period. We can slow it down by lowering our discharge of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere, and we should be doing that. But we're not going to reverse climate change. Therefore, we need to put a lot more effort into preparing for extreme weather, whether it's wildfire or floods or extreme heat. There's a multitude of perils that are all getting more challenging, driven by climate change. And it's basically we have a, a hotter climate that holds more moisture, for example, just flipping to another peril for the minute that's hitting different parts of Canada, flooding. We have more intense storms with larger volumes of rain coming down shorter periods of time because warm air holds more moisture. So across the country, what you're seeing are manifestations of climate change in action. And as bad and I don't mean to sound like a doomsayer, but the reality, the science is what the science is. As challenging as extreme weather events may be right now, people need to hang on to their hats because it's going to get more challenging going forward. And that's the way it is.
And do you have suggestions that could help the federal government be better prepared for Canadian wildfire risk?
Absolutely. And there's some good news here, by the way. That it sounds so depressing what I just went through, but over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years in Canada, an awful lot of good work has been done by many agencies, many organizations, to identify actions that can be taken to start with at the level of the house to make it such that when fire comes through a region, the probability of the house catching fire and burning down is much lower. Or when major precipitation events occur, that the probability of the house being flooded or ending up with a flooded basement is lower. But let me just turn to a couple of quick examples. And by the way, what we need to do is get this material into the hands of homeowners to help people help themselves prepare themselves for the wildfires, for the floods. People, they do not have to be victims of circumstance. So just for example, with wildfire, a couple of quick examples would be, if you own a home in a forested or grassland region, in other words, an area where fire could be problematic, you want to make sure that if you have shrubs right up along the wall of your house, that within 1.5 meters of the wall of the house, you remove those shrubs, get them out of there. Otherwise, when fire comes through, those shrubs catch fire, the heat transfers to the house, and the house burns down. If you have firewood, or, at the back door of your house for purposes of convenience, move it away from the house. And I understand that's an inconvenience, but it's better than the house burning down. Even actions such as, if you have a wooden fence leading up to your house, remove it and replace it with chain link or other type of fence that's not going to burn. Otherwise, the wood fence catches fire, the fire follows the fence up to the house, and the house burns down. and maybe just one or two more examples. If you have large conifer trees, needle-bearing trees within 10 meters of your house, these are trees that when they ignite, when they catch fire, they burn very quickly, very hot. And if they're in close proximity to the house, that heat will transfer to the house and the house burns down. So if you have conifer trees within 10 meters of the house, remove them. You can have fireproof or fire protected back porches. You can have fire protected siding. You can install non-combustible siding of stucco, metal, stone, cement, fiberboard that if flames hit it, it won't ignite. And then, and just with one final one, you want to make sure that you install Class A fire resistant roofing on your house, because most houses burn down when these fires go through with embers landing on the roof. You want to make sure that you have a roof, such as a metal roof, that when embers land on it, they don't ignite. And all of these can be put in place for not great expense. And I don't mean to dismiss the expense, because I realize for many people, every dollar counts. However, they've got to think of these efforts, the ones I've just described, as being an investment in equity in the home, because it's a good return on investment when you consider the alternative is your house burning down.
Well, Blair, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
After nearly 2 months of unforgettable action, Spain is once again on top of the soccer world. Spain defeated defending champion Argentina 1-0 in the FIFA World Cup final at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, capturing its second World Cup title and first since 2010. The tournament wrapped up with a star-studded finale as fans witnessed what many believed could be Messi's final World Cup appearance. Our correspondent Lucas Mitchtix has more on Spain's historic victory and the emotional farewell to a football icon.
Well, Teresa, good evening. We were hoping to come to you and show you a bunch of clips from yesterday's World Cup final, but the truth is we had to come outside the studios to the highway to keep it entertaining, because yesterday's game was anything but. Spain and Argentina in a World Cup final, and what viewers were thinking might have been reminiscent of the 2022 World Cup final between Argentina and France, were definitely deceived, because the game was very slow and it was total domination by the Spanish team, who are now world champions. In a World Cup final between soccer superpowers Spain and Argentina at New York, New Jersey Stadium on a perfect sunny July afternoon, it was the Southern European nation, led by its young, talented core and manager Luis de la Fuente, that dominated the play and won soccer's biggest prize. In a game that had limited energy and seemed totally one-sided, Spain possessed the ball 65% of the time, while Argentina and its strong defensive structure, led by goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez, kept the score blank until extra time. Martinez registering 10 saves, the most in 60 years at a World Cup final for a goalkeeper. Then, with one perfect strike of the ball in the 106th minute, Spanish winger Fernan Torres gave Spain the lead and ultimately the victory. Watch the reaction across Spain to both the goal and the win. Argentina players inconsolable after the match, refusing to speak to the media in what will likely be Lionel Messi's last World Cup. President Javier Milei declaring a bank holiday in the nation despite the loss. On the political side, FIFA President Gianni Infantino was joined in his private suite by U.S. President Trump and First Lady Melania. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and his wife were also there, alongside Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. The three host nations also on the field after the game, awarding medals. The other reason we came out to film here by the highway is because in the lead up to the World Cup final at New York's MetLife Stadium, which is in New Jersey, FIFA and local authorities told everybody not to cross the highway, that it was dangerous. You had to take public transit, take an Uber. And well, yesterday there was a clip circulating on social media of Argentinian fans actually crossing the barriers on the highway to get to the game. Take a look at this. And look at this, a picture that speaks 1,000 words. Lionel Messi embracing Spanish forward Lamine Yamal, the 19-year-old winger who has been compared to the Argentinian superstar in a figurative passing of the torch. For the Spanish team, this is their second World Cup victory, the first being in 2010. They arrived back in Madrid today. Celebrations currently underway in Madrid, where this will be surely a week-long event of victory celebrations. Reporting live, I'm Lucas Mitchix for the News Forum.
Canada's first appearance as a host of soccer's biggest tournament has officially come to an end. It was the first time men's World Cup matches were played on Canadian soil as fans across the country celebrated the sport and watched the Canadian men's national team make history on the global stage. But beyond the excitement on the field, the tournament also delivered a major economic opportunity. From tourism and hospitality to local businesses and global exposure, the full financial impact of hosting the World Cup is now coming into focus. Joining me now to discuss the economic legacy of Canada's World Cup experience is Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Yay, football.
Now, Toronto hosted 6 World Cup matches between June 12th and July 2nd. What was it like for Toronto to be in the spotlight as a World Cup host city?
Oh, it's a great deal of fun. If we're just talking fun, Teresa, it was a wonderful party. Yes, I mean, half a dozen matches over several weeks, but then one is also watching the games go on in other cities, indeed in other countries. So it was quite a thing. Now, in fairness, it's kind of like hosting Thanksgiving dinner for your family. It's expensive, it's time consuming, it's exhausting, but it's good to do once in a while to keep relations equitable. But Toronto is a fantastic place to enjoy the World Cup, probably the best place in the world to enjoy the World Cup, even if we're not hosting, because we got 50,000 of every nationality on earth. You have to consult your atlas to see all the, know all the flags because they all pop up, no matter who's hosting, wherever it is in the world. Toronto gets really into this tournament every 4 years anyway.
Now, the action wasn't only on the pitch. When fans spread out like that, what does it mean for local businesses and the broader regional economy?
Well, I think it's been helpful. I think there'll be a fairly long tail to this one, Teresa, in that I do think it has helped raise Toronto's profile, not just in the sporting world, but overall. I think, again, it's worth doing once in a while as sort of advertising, marketing, that it's hard to get a one-to-one correlation. I'm a big fan, particularly of the Olympics. So why is this relevant? Because what we saw in Toronto was that, in fact, the hotel rooms were not booked, totally packed, as they might have been much of the time. The reason I'm a fan of going to the Olympics in other people's countries is because it's the best way to enjoy that particular city, because no one's going to take their dream trip to London or Paris if the Olympics happen to be there, which means that all the other tourist attractions tend to be fairly open. Now, with the World Cup, it's a little bit different in that, again, we have 50,000 of every nationality, although half the ticket buyers apparently were overseas coming from to here. I went to the Germany Cote d'Ivoire game and the Senegal Iraq game. Even I, with all my glibness about how many Canadians are from somewhere else, I was surprised to see tens of thousands of people cheering for Germany, cheering for the Ivory Coast, cheering for Iraq and Senegal. So it was really quite an experience to be at those games. So the whole experience, I think, was good for the city. When it comes to individual venues, restaurants, I think restaurants, it's the single hardest business. There's, I don't know how many thousand of them in Toronto, but I do think it helps to have sporting events that people care about, like the Jays from last year and the World Cup this year. I do think it helps to boost business considerably, even if you happen to be in an Italian restaurant and the Italians, well, aren't in the tournament.
Well, staying on the topic of restaurants, Cristiano Ronaldo's family reportedly stopped by local Portuguese restaurants during Toronto's leg of the tournament. How much of a difference can big names like that make for small businesses in the city?
Well, I knew Ronaldo was recognizable. I didn't know his whole family were as recognizable as the Kardashians, but I think it makes a difference. I mean, Ronaldo was here, and apparently the Portuguese gave a tremendously positive review. They stayed in town after their game, uh, which I know of more than a few people, including one of my good friends and partners, had everything arranged to Vancouver because they figured Portugal was going to win its group and Ronaldo would play their round of 32 game in Vancouver. It's not how it worked out because they were right here. But I think it was a very positive thing for to have the Portuguese community, which is such a big part of our city, to have their superstar. I mean, the only thing bigger would have been Nelly Furtado, but to have their superstar here in town and playing in front of what is basically for Portugal a hometown crowd. So I think that was great, and I believe they went to practice a couple days later at Centennial Field, and apparently that was a mob scene as people stormed the stadium and by the thousands just to see him practice. So I think it was good for the communities here. I think it like advertising, but overall good for the city.
Now, Vancouver was voted #1 and Toronto was voted #3 for host cities. All things considered, would you call Canada's World Cup a success?
Oh, I think so. I don't think we have to do it too often, but I do think it was a success. I think uh, we have an opportunity to do a lot of cross-border things. Give a chance for our government leaders to meet. I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but that's a whole other issue for an whole other time. But I do think it's a very positive thing for the country to have hosted this. For Canada, have to put on a really good showing to make the final 16 when you're maybe a 30th ranked team in the world. I think is a really good show for our guys, and I think we should do it again, maybe in 20 years' time.
Well, Brendan, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Teresa.
Canada's inflation rate cooled in June as lower gas prices helped ease pressure on consumers. Statistics Canada says the consumer price index rose 2.8% compared to a year ago, down from 3.2% in May when rising gas prices pushed inflation higher. The agency says the month-over-month decline marked the largest drop since December 2024. The decline comes as oil prices eased following a ceasefire and renewed diplomatic talks after tensions between the U.S. and Iran drove energy costs higher in recent months. A recent report by the Calgary Chamber of Commerce with supportive research by the University of Calgary says Alberta's separation would not be good for the province, costing the economy billions of dollars along with job losses in the tens of thousands. For more, our Western Canada Bureau Chief Hal Roberts spoke with the president and CEO of the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, Deborah Yedlin.
Now, this report by the Chamber does not really paint a rosy picture for separatists. I mean, the economic analysis by the University of Calgary says Alberta separating could result in about a $62 billion annual hit to the provincial economy. But what about those who say with our natural resources, our oil and gas, and no longer having to worry about transfer payments, will more than make up for it?
It is such an interesting conversation because there are so many things that Alberta will have to continue to fund on its own that will flow from what's been developed. But the bigger picture is what kind of trade agreements do you have with other provinces? What kind of egress do you actually have off the West Coast? How do you negotiate with other countries that you now are able to trade with, being part of Canada as a federation? There are a lot of things that are still very undefined. And if you look at the Brexit example, we can see that that was obviously not exactly what transpired. Everybody was expecting there'd be more money to come in and that could be used to fund healthcare. That did not happen. And, there's a lot of analysis that's come out 10 years later in terms of what could have happened, what the economic growth could have been, what the productivity could have been, what the investment could have looked like. There's a lot of remorse there.
Your report also suggested 175,000 job losses and a 6% drop in GDP per capita. How were those numbers arrived at?
Trevor obviously uses his data and his models and looks at what would happen if this kind of decision was reached. And certainly we know from, again, the Brexit example, but also the Quebec example in terms of how many people left the province, didn't return, the number of businesses that left. And I think, let's just talk about that 175,000 people. We are at a very, very interesting time in the province's history. And we are going to be able to develop our resources at a pace that we haven't been able to do for a very long time. We need 175,000 workers to stay, not to leave. And so, if there is an expectation that we will be increasing oil sands production, if we will be increasing natural gas production, if we will be building pipes, we need labor, we need talent. And this, you're basically cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Now, Trevor Tomby from the University of Calgary, professor there, he also mentioned that there are around 330,000 local jobs supported by Alberta's interprovincial exports. Can you explain, Deborah, how they would really be impacted if Alberta was to separate?
Well, again, it's 300,000 interprovincial linkages plus another 600,000 tied to international trade. And so you're looking at 900,000 jobs from a trade standpoint. And, you're looking at the decrease in investment. You're looking at challenging access to markets. Nobody invests in times of certainty. And so the jobs that are associated with that trade are going to be affected, especially if the costs are going to go up because you're dealing with an entity that is sitting in the middle of a country and not necessarily connected from a federation standpoint and covered by the existing agreements.
Now, the report also suggested that investment in our province would decline by up to $15 billion, which translates to around $3,000 for every Albertan. What kind of industries or countries may look elsewhere?
Everybody will look elsewhere. Capital goes where where it's treated best, and certainly where there is certainty. So anybody who has what we have as a province, whether it's energy, whether it's agriculture, whether it's manufacturing, if there are those resources and the ability to invest elsewhere, that's where the money will go. It's really important to understand that the international investors did rely on the economic analysis with respect to Brexit, and they were burned. The numbers made sense. You shouldn't do it because all of these things are going to happen. And on paper, that's exactly where everybody relied on in terms of making their decisions. But they were burned.
The Calgary Chamber has a number of members. And what are some of those business owners telling you? Will they stay in Alberta in the event that our province becomes a sovereign nation?
Some are saying that they will leave, and they are also putting their investment plans on hold.
Alberta Premier Daniel Smith says the transitional cost for separation could be upwards of $400 billion alongside $50 billion in ongoing annual costs. What do you think some of those annual costs might look like?
Well, there's healthcare. There is there's healthcare. What happens to the financial institutions? What happens to a defense? From a defense standpoint, the administrative pieces that we rely on that are delivered by the federal government, we'd have to fund ourselves. A passport, a post office, air traffic control, like all of those things that we just take for granted are costs to run for a country. And so I think it's not cheap. And anybody who thinks otherwise is fooling themselves.
Deborah Yedlin, President and CEO of the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Plans are underway across the country for data centers needed to support artificial intelligence technology. Opposition, however, is building in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. According to a recent survey, the majority of Canadians worry that AI data centers will hike their power bills and harm the environment. The Leger poll had 81% of respondents saying that they are concerned about the prospect of data centers causing spikes in their household electricity bills. Premiers from across Canada are set to gather in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island tomorrow for their annual 3-day meeting. The Council of the Federation meeting begins tomorrow and runs until Thursday, bringing together provincial and territorial leaders to discuss key issues facing the country. Internal trade, the economy, and energy are expected to be among the top priorities as premiers look for ways to strengthen collaboration across Canada. U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra was in Edmonton today, highlighting the importance of regional partnerships and strengthening cross-border relationships. Hoekstra spoke at the Pacific Northwest Economic Regions Annual Summit, which brings together political leaders, industry officials, and business representatives from Canada and the United States. During his remarks, Hoekstra highlighted the close economic ties between Canada and the United States, including the role of energy and oil in the two countries' partnership.
There are things we need. There's lots of things that the U.S. needs. Okay? We want oil. We need oil. And we have found over the last, couple of decades that one of the best places in the world to get oil from is Canada. It's close by. The people that we have to work with in Alberta are great business partners. They're good business people. And, so we settle on a price, and so we get 3 to 4 million barrels of oil per day from Alberta. Works for Canada, works for the United States. We'd like to get another 3 or 4 million barrels of oil over the next decade from somewhere. And probably the region that can make the most compelling case for supplying more oil to the United States would be Saskatchewan and Alberta.
Meanwhile, Canada is tightening border measures as the Congo's rapidly spreading Ebola outbreak continues. The federal government is denying entry to foreign nationals who have been in the Democratic Republic of Congo within the past 21 days. The new rules from the Public Health Agency of Canada came into effect this week. Congo's health ministry says more than 900 people have died in the outbreak, with 930 deaths recorded among more than 2,300 confirmed cases as of Saturday. Officials say the outbreak declared in eastern Congo on May 15th is the fastest growing Ebola outbreak on record.
So as of July the 11th, we had seen close to 2,000 cases, confirmed cases, and over 700 deaths across the 5 provinces now. This is now the 3rd largest Ebola outbreak ever, and we've seen the fastest growth in a single month since the outbreak started, and of all the Ebola outbreaks that we've managed. Perhaps the most alarming finding is that many of the newly reported deaths are people who died in their communities without ever reaching a health facility and without receiving care. And as of today, 80% of new cases are outside our contact list, and so are coming to us from unknown chains of transmission. We must find the cases earlier, bring them into care as soon as possible, so that we reduce transmission in the community. The more cases stay in the community, the more they transmit, the more we stay behind the curve.
The U.S. war with Iran reached an inflamed high point over the weekend with the death of 3 active military personnel from Iranian strikes. 2 service members were killed at an air base in Jordan, while the 3rd was killed in northern Iraq during the controlled detonation of a downed Iranian drone. According to the New York Times, the Pentagon has withheld dozens of military injuries during the ongoing war, with the death toll now officially at 17 and over 400 sustaining injuries. U.S. President Donald Trump was asked about the ongoing war following his appearance at the World Cup.
Well, we feel very badly, but those great people, those great patriots were out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran has been very, very badly damaged. They've lost everything almost militarily. They've got very little left. They've got some missiles. They've got some drones. They've got some manufacturing ability, not much. We control the strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots.
And while the hostilities have increased and global oil prices skyrocket, both U.S. and Iranian negotiators are leaving the door open to return to talks. The U.S. continued bombing the nation today in what is now the 9th consecutive night.
But I do think the world is coming to a point now where it's clear that Iran, at least some people in Iran, want to control the strait and hold that as leverage against the world. And the world has to decide whether or not it's going to allow an international waterway to be under the control of a country like that. It will be completely illegal, unlawful, and unacceptable. The United States will continue to do what it needs to protect global shipping, but other countries need to begin to step up and provide, whether it's hardware or finances, to help carry that burden.
Ukraine has launched one of its largest drone attacks on Moscow, according to the city's mayor, days after Russia carried out major missile strikes on Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities. Moscow officials say more than 400 drones were sent toward the Russian capital, with most intercepted by air defenses. Some drones, however, caused injuries and damage. The attack highlights Ukraine's growing drone capabilities as Russia continues relying heavily on ballistic missiles to target Ukrainian infrastructure and air defense systems. Ukraine also says a cargo ship leaving the port of Odessa was hit by Russian forces, killing 10 crew members, including 5 Syrian sailors. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with the Holy See's Secretary for Relations with States and thanked them for their support in this conflict.
Thank you very much for your coming, your visit, your prayers. Best regards to His Holiness. And I understood that it was a difficult night for all our people, and you've been during this night.
In some ways, it was good to be a witness to the dangers and the suffering of the Ukrainian people at this time. I too bring you the greetings of Pope Leo.
Thank you so much.
He has, as you know, he's on vacation at the moment, but he follows developments in the Ukraine very closely.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we are very thankful that on our day of statehood, of Ukrainian statehood, yes, Cardinal Zuppi was here. We are very thankful for this, and of course we are waiting, for the visit of the Pope Leo. Yeah. And it can be very emotional, historical moment.
Andy Burnham has officially become the United Kingdom's Prime Minister after accepting an invitation from King Charles III to form a government. Burnham takes over after Keir Starmer resigned, becoming the 5th British Prime Minister in 4 years and the 7th in the past decade. Starmer delivered his final speech before leaving for Buckingham Palace.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support. And finally, I want to thank once again my family, Vic and our children, my team, all the staff here and across the Labour Party, everyone at Number 10 and across the civil service, and everyone who has supported our efforts along the way. For all the focus on individuals, politics will always be a team sport, and the changes we've delivered for our country and our party belong to everyone who has fought for them. I thank them again today, and I thank the British people for the opportunity to serve. I go with good grace, I go with a smile, and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
Burnham was chosen as leader of the Labour Party after securing the support of 379 of 403 Labour lawmakers in the House of Commons. Under Britain's parliamentary system, a governing party can replace its leader and prime minister without triggering a national election. In his first address as prime minister, Burnham said that he wants to be a circuit breaker and bring stability to British politics.
I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. In doing so, I am acutely conscious that I am the 6th person in the last 10 years to walk up this street, the 7th Prime Minister since 2016, making this a moment for reflection and new resolution. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around. And that's why we will change politics, to make it more collaborative, more about problem solving than point scoring. And we will take power out of here and carry it into every postcode in the land so that they can do more. And in doing more, build a new economy where we put life's essentials back under stronger public control.
Influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate are set to appear before a federal magistrate in Miami as British authorities seek their extradition over allegations of rape and sex trafficking. The brothers were arrested in Miami on Saturday and are expected in court today following a request from Britain's Crown Prosecution Service. UK prosecutors allege the offenses occurred between 2010 and 2017 and involve 4 additional alleged victims.
In 2024, the CPS authorised 21 charges against Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate following our investigation into allegations of sexual offences dating back to 2012. Following the initial charges being authorised, we have continued to investigate further offences reported to both Bedfordshire Police and Hertfordshire Constabulary. As a result, 38 new charges in total have now been authorised against Andrew and Tristan Tate, bringing the total number of charges faced to 59. The charges relate to 7 victims spanning a period from 2010 to 2017. Our officers have worked closely with the CPS and both national and international law enforcement agencies as part of this complex investigation. I can now confirm that officers from the United States have arrested both Andrew and Tristan Tate in relation to this matter, and they are being detained pending ongoing legal proceedings. We understand the interest that this case will generate, but we would urge the public not to speculate and to allow the legal process to be carried out correctly. I want to make it clear that there is no place for male violence against women and girls in our society, and we will continue to work tirelessly to support victims and investigate all reports made to us.
The Tate's lawyers say the brothers deny the allegations. The case is the latest development in a years-long legal battle that has unfolded across the United States, the United Kingdom, and Romania. And Ryan Fox has captured his first major championship, sinking a clutch birdie putt on the final hole to win the British Open.
Be right, baby. Oh, yes, sirree. Fantastic shot. You won't see many better than that.
Taking no time at all. It's what you dream of, a putt to win the Open.
He has it! Ryan Fox, champion golfer of the year. He celebrates, and far away New Zealand celebrates with him. What a finish, what a way to take it. The stuff that dreams are made of.
The 39-year-old New Zealander drained a 12-foot birdie putt on the 18th at the Royal Birkdale to shoot a final round 68 and finish one shot ahead of American Cameron Young. Young had posted a brilliant 64 and waited more than 2 hours to see if it would be enough. But Fox bounced back from late bogeys and delivered when it mattered most to claim the claret jug. Christopher Nolan's latest film, The Odyssey, has delivered a massive debut at the box office, proving audiences are still showing up for original, ambitious storytelling. The epic adaptation of Homer's classic poem earned an estimated $124.5 million in domestic ticket sales and another $139.6 million internationally. The opening marks Nolan's biggest debut since The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, surpassing the launch of his Oscar-winning film Oppenheimer. In an industry dominated by franchises and similar intellectual property, Nolan's take on one of the world's oldest literary works has become an unexpected summer blockbuster. Disney's Moana finished a distant second this weekend with $19 million in its third week in theaters. I'm Teresa Skubic, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. For more news on demand, you can always visit our website at forumdailynews.ca and make sure to follow us at our social media handles on X and TikTok. Good night, Canada.